Welcome back guys for another Mortal Realms Monday painting video. This one we're looking at the Azyrite ruins from issue 26 of the Mortal Realms magazine, and you can find a link to the review of that magazine up in the top corner there in the cards. But first off with this, I went ahead and primed this section in grey cere, and I'm now giving it an all over base coat of Death Guard green. So I'll get on with covering this piece, and then we'll move on to building this up to the final look. And welcome back. So now that it's got a complete base coat of the green, I'm now taking some Wraithbone and giving this a heavy dry brush over the entire ruins, focusing a little more on the top, but making sure that that does cover until almost the bottom of the model, but you can leave a little bit of green there if you like, if you are following along with this. So what we're trying to do is get that that aged greenish stone look to this model, and similar to what it is in the magazines and some of the artwork that you can find for it. And I'll just throw in a little bit of a difference with the brickwork itself. So I'll get on with getting this a nice heavy dry brush, obviously just making sure that all the flat surfaces and edges and things like that have a brushing of this on there, and we'll be back in just a bit. Okay, once that dry brush is done, I'm now applying a 3 to 2 ratio, sorry, of Agrax Earthshade and Athonian Camo Shade. So it's 3 parts Camo Shade, 2 parts of the Agrax. And what this has done is given it a slightly brownish tint to that brighter green that the Camo Shade has. And obviously I'm now applying this over all of the model, making sure that it sits down in some of those recesses a little bit, but generally just trying to get an overall coat of this. What this will do is slightly tint the Wraithbone dry brush, and it will stop it from looking so rough as well, and it'll obviously stain down into those recesses, so do focus it around that brickwork and in some of those cracks and things like that. So we'll get on with this and be back in just a bit. Okay, so once that shade mix has had time to dry, I'm now going back over with a quick dry brushing of Corax White. The reason I'm using the Corax White is it does have a slightly grey tint to it. It's not a pure white like White Scar or Ceramite White, so this will give it a little bit more of that grey stone tint to the dry brushing. And again, focusing this a lot more on the top of the model, say the top 2/3 as I compare to the bottom, just so that it has that sort of greenish glow to it from the bottom up, so it's brighter at the top and a bit more green towards the bottom. Also, you'll notice that I haven't fully assembled this section of ruin. This is the U-shaped piece with the planks on top. Now I will show the planks toward the end of the video, but for now I've left the one side off and the planks, so that for me, when it comes to assembling, it's easier to get to the inside of the model without having to try and, without having that roof piece in the way. So I'll just go ahead and get this on here, and we'll be back in just a bit. Okay, so with that done, we're pretty much halfway through now, and what I'm doing is giving these bricks a heavy brush of Corax White. Obviously again focusing that towards the top of the bricks more than the bottom. I'm not too fussed about the bottom as that will have a darker stain to it. Now if you want your bricks to be the same colour as the rest of the ruins, you can go ahead and leave them out at this point. Otherwise just go over them with this grey white, obviously being careful not to get too much onto the columns, and we'll be back in just a bit. Okay, so now I'm going to stain these bricks, and this is using a custom mix of 5 parts Lamian medium and 1 part Abaddon black. And what this will do is create almost a wash, but it won't run down the recesses like a wash would. If you apply a wash into these cracks, by the time it's dried, most of the wash would have ran to the bottom of the brickwork, and you'll still have that greenish tint in the gaps at the top of the brickwork. This mix is a little bit thicker, and so it stays where you put it within those bricks, or within the gaps between the bricks. With the bricks themselves, all I'm doing, as you can see, is just a straight pull over the bricks, and all this is doing is depositing the black into those little bumps and grooves and textures in the bricks, and leaving a natural highlight from that white all around the edges of the bricks themselves, essentially giving us a straight up highlight with a glaze. You could probably do this with the contrast paint, the black one. I'm not quite sure the name of it. I don't use contrast paints myself at the minute, but you know, this is just an easy way of doing this without it. What I'll then do, as you'll notice here, is go back in and pick off the odd brick here and there with a little bit more of the black, and just let that sit on there just to darken the brick up slightly, so that you get a few bricks that are darker than some of the other ones. And obviously I'll go and do this over the whole piece, and we'll be back in just a bit. Alright, and once that black has had time to dry, we're just going to do a very light dry brush over, again, the top 2/3, focusing a little bit more on the top, with the Corax White. So just in a downwards motion, putting straight down those bricks, obviously trying not to get onto the pillars now, and just give that some top down highlight. But I'll get on with this, and I'll catch up with you guys in just a minute. Okay, so at this point the building is essentially done. So now it's time to start adding some mould and moss and green stains and things like that. So I'm using an old brush here that the bristles have gone almost stiff like, and it makes a good stippling brush. And the mix that I'm actually applying this green with is 4 parts Athonian Camo Shade, 2 parts Agrax Earth Shade, and a small drop of Lauren Forest to thicken it up slightly. And all I'm doing is stippling this over anywhere where I would like the moss to be. So this is sort of the staining from the moss that you get in that green tint that spreads out from clumps of moss before it actually starts to fluff up as moss, or areas where moss has been brushed off and knocked away. So I'm just applying this anywhere where the light would catch, as well as water, because obviously the two together help to create moss, or help moss to grow. So just applying this, you know, in sort of general areas, climbing up the pillars slightly, up the brickwork, up some of the columns, and then I'm also dotting it along the top of these areas, because I will be keeping my planks separate, so that it's a little bit more modular and can be rotated to create a slightly different building, you know, each time I use the piece. So just go around the model and apply this and let it dry, and then a second coat. Okay, so while that moss effect has time to dry, we'll get on with doing the planks. And you can see I've already done the stonework around the edge in exactly the same method as I did for the building itself. And all I'm doing now is applying a coat of dryad bark over all of the planks, just working it in there to slightly thin down, and using the Citadel dry brush, I'm just rubbing that in and scrubbing it down into those gaps to get a nice even coat of the brown. Obviously this will be done above and the underside. So I'll get on with this and we'll be back in just a bit. Okay, so I'm now taking some XV88, and although it's quite a light, more ochre type brown, this is to give us that greenish tint, as you can see, to the planks, to make them look a little bit, you know, old and sort of rotten, and you know, a bit of mould and things like that growing on them. So just a nice liberal dry brush, not covering the entire piece exactly, but you know, getting the good coverage over the majority of the planks, and then focusing in you know, one or two areas just to give it a little bit more of a contrast. But I'll get on with this and then we can move to the next step. Okay, and I'm now going to go in with some Ushapti bone and just pick off edge highlights and sort of dust a few areas that I want just some brighter highlights, just to pick out some more of that detail. And I will be going over this with a wash, so it will tone that down a little bit. But you can see I'm just concentrating on, you know, a certain plank here and there, and yeah, so I'll go on with that and we'll be back in just a bit. And now, very simply, apply a wash of Agrax Earthshade. So just straight down, get it into those recesses. You know, you don't have to apply this too thinly. I find a brush full per plank is about enough, and this will tone that bone down a little bit and settle down into those recesses and give it, you know, bring back a bit more of that brownish look to it. So I'll get on, let this dry, and catch you guys in just a second. Okay, and for the most part the model is now done. However, I am now taking some PVA and my trusty stippling brush, and you can probably guess why the bristles are so ruined and stiff and perfect for stippling but not much else. And I'm just applying some PVA glue to anywhere where I want to apply some moss, or it will actually be modelling flock, but it will give the effect of moss. So over any of those green areas that we blotched in earlier, but being mindful to leave some of those green patches showing. We just want the moss in the majority of those areas, and then as it becomes the stonework or the brickwork again, you'll get a few patches of the green shade, and then the brickwork itself. So very simply, just apply the glue. Do this in sections, so as you can see I'm doing this whole section of wall here, and then I'll do the area where my thumb is, and then obviously the same with the reverse, and the same with the planks. So just work in sections. I've got a lid there that when I sprinkle the flock onto is going to catch all the excess, and then I let the glue fully dry once I've covered the entire model, and then after about an hour I'll tap the flock or the model, sorry, to, you know, get any of that excess flock off, and then with a soft brush I'll just brush over it and make sure that, you know, it pulls off anything that is loosely stuck on, or, you know, just the outside edges and pieces that didn't quite stick to glue but still wanted to attach to the model, and that will give us a finished look of a good moss effect. And there we have it, guys, the completed model with flock and the roof piece. Like I said, that's not permanently attached, that is modular, so that I can rotate it 90 degrees and have the length going along the long piece on the left there with the doorway. But yeah, there's the model with the flock. And on the planks, just in the corner of the brickwork, I've gone ahead and put in a blob of super glue and just dabbed down some static grass, just to give the impression that the wood has started to grow a bit of grass in there. Nothing too much, you know, just for a little bit of a finish. But yeah, all that needs doing with that now is putting it on a base. Personally, I'm just going to leave it like that and have it modular for different tabletops and things like that. But that's all down to personal choice. But overall, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope that it gives some inspiration to some of you guys. If you did enjoy the video, please hit that thumbs up button, and if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button and ding that little bell for notifications of further uploads of videos. With Mortal Realms series, obviously that will be every Monday for the Mortal Realms Monday, and every Wednesday or Thursday will be the Indomitus series, focusing on the Warhammer 40k Indomitus box set, which will be expanded on further into the 40k. So overall, the channel is going to consist of Warhammer or Age of Sigmar and 40k based videos, tutorials and things like that, as well as the odd unboxing, product review and things like that. If there is anything you guys would like to see from me, let me know down in the comments of this or any video, and I'll be sure to read them. And if it's something that I feel capable of doing or that I am able to do, I'll try and get those videos up for you. So until next time guys, thanks a lot for watching, take it easy and keep painting those minis.